HarperCollins presents A Knock at the Door. A homeless man, a lawyer, and a family changed forever. Written and read by Rob Parsons. For Diane. My name is on this book, but of course this is our story, and I have loved living it with you. A Knock at the Door is based on a true story. Some names and locations have been changed, but I have relayed as faithfully as I can the account of Ronnie's life with us. The most difficult parts to write concerned the periods when he was a child in care. In these I've relied on what he told us of his experiences and what I was able to glean from his local authority records. Sadly, his time in those institutions and the effect they had on his life is mirrored in many other accounts of children in the care system at that time. Chapter 1. A Knock at the Door. 23rd of December 1975. 2 days to Christmas, and the doorbell wasn't working properly. The knock at the door was not loud. Not a policeman's knock, but neither was it soft, and not the kind of knock you make when you hope nobody will answer. But it was persistent. I sometimes wonder how it would have all turned out if the person standing outside had given up, if when nobody responded to the constant pressing of the bell push, he'd simply shrugged his shoulders and walked away. I imagine how different our lives would have been if he hadn't decided to bang on the door, or we had simply chosen not to answer, believing it to be the return of the small boy we had generously rewarded the previous evening just to stop him murdering once in Royal David City. But answer it we did. Diane and I had been married for 4 years. I was 27 years old, and we'd been in our new home on the outskirts of Cardiff for just 6 months. I was in the living room, listening to Prime Minister Harold Wilson talk about his plans for bringing peace to Northern Ireland when Diane called from the kitchen, "See who that is, Rob?" I moved into the winter chill of the hall and walked past the brown second-hand sideboard, its scratches covered by a dozen Christmas cards. It had already been dark for over 2 hours, and as I approached the front door, the frighteningly tall and broad silhouette through the glass made me pause. Opening it slowly, I was relieved to find the long shadow was cast merely by the lamp-post opposite, and an ordinary man stood on my doorstep. He was of medium height, with several days' stubble on his square chin and brown hair parted in an indeterminate line, yet something about him was unusual. At first I thought it was his clothes. They were creased and dirty, as though he'd lived with them and in them for a very long time. But it wasn't his clothing that was odd. It was his bearing. In spite of his rough appearance, he looked confident, as if whoever lived at this house would be glad he had called and be sure to show it. But the owner of this house did not show it. "How can I help you?" I demanded with a voice that matched the chill in the air. He gazed at me as though he felt sorry for me. "Don't you know who I am?" "It's Ronnie Lockwood." Of course. How could I have forgotten him and the mayhem he caused the first time we met? I was brought up in a street of 28 terraced houses in Cardiff, Wales. It was in many ways nondescript, but it did have 3 things that the surrounding streets did not possess: a laundry, a coal yard, and a tiny gospel hall on the corner. We knew people who worked at the laundry, and we got our coal from the yard, but as far as my family was concerned, the church could have been in another country. Then one day a Sunday school teacher called Miss Williams came to visit. Miss Williams was short, with wiry grey hair and replete with the boldness she attributed to the Almighty. When my mother opened the door to her, she smiled and posed the same question she'd already asked at the 8 houses between us and the Gospel Hall. Would any boys or girls in this house like to come to Sunday school?
Sample complete. Ready to continue?